these different strands, pardon my dog.
No puppies were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
Are you sure?
No, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure.
Western Christianity has spent the last 2,000 years telling everyone they're separated from God.
This is Not Church with John and Nat Turney.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your host with the most, Nat Turney, along with my brother with the Gandalf-looking beard, John. Say, yo, 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 what up, John?
Yo, 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 what up, John?
See, I'm just going to get more and more complicated with our introductions, see if you can follow along. It's going to be, next time it's going to be like, say, like she sells by the seashore, John, go. And you'll have to, all right, anyway.
No.
We are,
How now, brown cow?
How now, brown cow? Brown chicken, brown cow? Hey, that's going to lead us into our next topic. Okay, so we are here with our good buddy, Meg Calvin, otherwise known as Meggie Lee Calvin, a close or maybe distant relative of John Calvin, which we'll get into later. We can discuss her Calvinist leanings or not at some point in the program. But Meg is an amazing human being. She is a best-selling author. She's written 2 books that I'm aware of, maybe 3 or 4. She's probably written a couple under a pen name, some self-published. We'll talk about that later also. Where she excels as a writer, she really excels as a coach, and she is a writing coach. She's a marketing coach. She really focuses in on helping people like me who think they have a book they want to write and maybe have a lot of obstacles, and she helps to clear those obstacles out of the way. It's really it's an amazing thing. If you were in the market for a marketing or writing coach, man, this is your hookup today. But we would just love to talk to Meg about whatever it is that's on her mind and see where the conversation takes us. So without any further ado, Meg Calvin, welcome.
Yay. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And as you were introducing me, I was thinking about your unique style as a writer that was, as I remember what we titled it as, was your style of writing, which is so amazing and such a gift to the world, is what would happen if the comedian Daniel Tosh and Keith Giles were to procreate a book baby.
That's actually going to be one of the endorsements on the back of the book from Meg. It'll be like, it's as though, Daniel Tosh and Keith Giles had a love baby or a love child. I said a love baby. That sounds, why does that sound weirder when you say love baby? When you say love child, she had a love baby.
Love baby.
What's really interesting, we might as well just start with that, because I think it's interesting that one of, I think, your greatest strengths as a coach is teasing that out of people. You know what I mean? Like helping us to understand that the world doesn't need another Brian Zond. There is one, and he's fantastic. And so there's no sense whatsoever in trying to emulate. Good God, if I could make one coherent sentence, it'd be great, John. Emulate. There's no sense in but there's no sense in trying to emulate somebody else's style. Lean into who you are. And even if so speak to this if you could, because one of those things that we discussed very early on was those little whispers in the back of your mind, those you had a term for it that I'm sure you'll tell me in a second, but those things that say, who needs this book? Like it's already been done. Somebody else has done this better.
Was it a limiting belief? Or was it
yes, a limiting belief. And so, yeah, just if you would speak to the power of getting rid of those things if we can.
Yes. Yeah. So that is a really amazing question. And I was being a bad listener as you were talking, and I was thinking what I wanted to say before you were done.
Love it.
Yeah. I've noticed with all the authors I've had the pleasure of serving, all of them not only have very healing books that are going to make the world and the collective consciousness a more healed, better place, but they also all bring a diverse set of blocks and limiting beliefs. And so helping them first and foremost, like you said, get clear on how could I best serve them? I will get to your question, I promise, but you were the first, and I told you this, you were the first author that I served that did not need my help with creating a format for your book that was readable, retainable, and relatable. You also had an amazing idea, And some authors I work with come to me and they have 4 ideas, and then we get to hone in on what wants to be birthed first. But you had an amazing idea, and you had honed in a format that was already readable, retainable, relatable. And I felt that once you and I connected and got to working together, that, yeah, you're the only thing that I feel that I was honored to serve you with was helping you realize that your peers and I remember it was one of the boldest conversations I ever had with a client with you one time. Was I said to you, and I asked your permission first because it was very direct, but I said to you, when are you going to, I still laugh because it's totally not me, but I felt like it was needed, was that you were wasting drooling over these big name authors, Zahn and others and Jerzak, that were amazing. And I without realizing that they were your peers. And I asked you, when are you going to stop getting off on name dropping all of these impressive theological authors? And you you said to me, oh, it's not like that. It's not like that. And so I don't know.
But it was.
It was. Okay. Awesome.
Of course it was like that. No, you just can't say those things out loud.
Right. Yeah. So that was your only, I feel, as your partner that I noticed. And I'm thankful that I get to show up with authors that have healing books and get curious with them about what is the real block. And now you are, I mean, I know our partnership is over. I feel that you are so unstoppable as you were before you even partnered with me. And I hope that I served you in unblocking that part, but you are just as amazing as a writer as the guys that you were name dropping in your book. And I would say I would rather read yours, as I told you, because you bring in this like Daniel Tosh style of just spitting out wit and wisdom so quickly. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to get a pen. I'm learning so much on just one page. So I would rather read yours because of the spice that you bring as your style. Did any of that help or answer?
Well, it does. I mean, it helped. It helped me. Whether our listeners get anything out of it is immaterial at this point. Really, this is all about my, assuaging and massaging my ego. But
That's all we ever do. That's all we ever do here, really. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
Exists to prop up my massive ego. And actually, what's funny is there's a certain amount of, and tell me if you've had this sort of experience with some of the people that you work with. Some of those limiting beliefs come in and manifest themselves in a sort of false humility. You know what I mean? Like I'm not supposed to say, I think this is going to be a great book. I need other people to say that. I don't. So to me, it sounds cocky and arrogant to come in and say anything really, really positive about what we're doing. I would much rather deflect and put the credit on you and say, well, and honestly, the truth, this is, now that I've said that, this is going to sound disingenuous, but the truth is, had I not partnered with you, this idea might have languished in the furthest recesses of my lizard brain for God knows how long before I decided to crap or get out the pot. So one thing that I would tell people, if there's any inkling whatsoever in your mind that you might want to partner with someone like Meg, and really who else but Meg would you want to do that with? But don't you think that does it help to create a sense of urgency where it goes from the back burner of like, okay, well, someday I might do this, someday I might do this, and suddenly you've sort of put your money where your mouth is. You've committed yourself to a time frame, and then you've said, okay, I need to get to work on this. I've paid Meg a lot of money. So now we have to, no, it's not about that, but
before you answer, I just want to say that's a valid part of this, right? I mean, we can't ignore that. I mean, you get paid to do this. This is your job. This is your livelihood. But in doing that, what you're bringing to the table is exactly what Nat's talking about. Encouragement, pushing someone towards finishing a project that without you, and I'm talking from the side of someone who doesn't use a writing coach. I'm a loser, everybody. I'll just admit that right now. So I have a book that I'm sitting on that's on chapter 2. And I think I started mine before Nat started his.
See, so, now it's time to fish or cut bait, John.
So I think that's a valid part. And I don't think we can ignore, and people are like, well, she gets paid. Obviously, she's going to be there and help you. It's like, but no, it's like any other vocation. It's like any other job, right? We do, well, hopefully. And it seems like in your case, you're actually getting to do something that you love to do.
Yeah, I feel there's definitely a difference between intentionally letting a goal or something we want to create hibernate, and we can feel that difference. And we're consciously choosing that. Every part of us is choosing to let this book idea hibernate. And then there's another way to move about it where the fear is doing you, the fear is doing me. And then that's happening at a subconscious level, and we can hide behind the story of Christian humility, but most often it's not Christian humility. It is some kind of fear or limiting beliefs that I'm not smart enough to write about that subject. I'm too much for people. If I was to fully express myself how I want to express and over the erotic fiction about dinosaurs. Just kidding. Throw that.
Now, see, there you already let my next book idea slip. Thanks. I thought you said that was private.
But to answer your question, Nat, not the one about dinosaurs, but the one about
which dinosaur would be best?
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Velociraptor.
Does having accountability or a deadline help? Then I would say yes, especially if the fear is doing you at a subconscious level and you're not intentionally hibernating with the idea at a conscious level. Does that make sense?
I think that's right. And from my perspective, I think why this is a great conversation to have, I think, is because the first time we spoke, I had no idea what you did. And I think that was obvious in the really, really dumbass questions that I asked. So, and the fact that I think I actually got bounced from that interview for a good chunk of time because my computer crapped out. And so we had some technical issues. But I really had no idea. I hadn't had a chance to read your book. I wasn't exactly sure what it was you were doing, but I connected with you even in that interview, and we connected quickly thereafter. I think that same day, I think I sent you an email and said, okay, what does this look like? How does this? Because I sensed in myself that I would need somebody to help pull some ideas out and someone to help me strategize a few things. And I didn't realize at the time that I also needed somebody to help me with deadlines and sort of give me a reason to, you know what I'm saying? And don't misunderstand, it wasn't pressure, but there was always in the back of my mind, I got to talk to Meg on Monday, and I damn well better have something for her to read, because I don't want to spend an hour talking about the thing I didn't write this week. And so, and again, that wasn't an overwhelming thing. It wasn't a burdensome thing. It was a driving force. Like, okay, let's get this done. We have a short amount of time. I love the time frame that you put on there. It seemed like a long time when we started, and then it went really fast. So, but I do remember telling somebody that you were equal parts therapist and writing coach, because there were quite a few sessions that felt a bit therapeutic, you know, where you were helping me to kind of uncover some things and dig through some things and find out, you know, some of those conversations were very frank and very direct, and they needed to be, and that was super, super helpful. And it helped, I think, focus in on what the book was going to be. So for that, I thank you. And I think anybody, again, this is going to sound like an hour-long commercial, but so be it. If you're looking for somebody to help streamline and help sort of bring into focus an idea that you have, it helps to have a partner in this and to have someone to bounce ideas off of, and someone to say, yeah, I'm not sure that maybe could be said more succinctly, but that's what I really appreciate about what you've done so far.
Oh, you're so welcome. My honor. I said earlier, I have a heart for helping healing books be born. And sadly, what I've noticed is the most healing books are sitting inside people who have been raised very religiously in a religion, and most time Christian. And with that comes limiting beliefs around talent, around money, around marketing, around joy and pleasure, which is a huge part of writing. Is the same way as open as we are to receiving inspiration to write is how open we are to receive pleasure throughout our day. And so that's another block that some writers struggle with. And yeah, you're exactly right. A 40,000 word book, which is 20,000 words shorter than yours, a 40,000 word book can be totally birthed in 6 months. And that's at only 280 words a day. That's less than half a page. So when you have I have 2 coaches, and I hope I show up for my clients like they do for me, reminding them, you can do 280 words a day. You can. And so, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely can.
And that was helpful too, to reframe. So, because, a lot of times you're looking at this process and you're going, oh my God, that is just, that's an insurmountable task, and I honestly still don't know how people do this multiple times a year. We're going to hopefully get a chance to talk to David Bentley Hart here soon. And, I was talking to my friend Keith, who's going to try and help us get connected with him. And I said, I hear he's got a new book coming out. And Keith said, he's got 3. And I said, 3. Plus he just put something online. He's got some other articles he's written. I'm like, what do you just do? Right from sun up to sundown? That must be all that you do. And so if you would, there's also not a limiting belief, but a limiting reality that all of us, besides David Bentley Hart, are bivocational. This is not what I do for a living. I'm trying to squeeze out some time in my day. Is that something that you help people with as well, to organize their time and say, listen, you can squeeze out this much, right?
Yeah, totally. So we get to get clear on how your brain works as a client. And so I do a little personality test. So I figure out how to best serve you, what is best needed. And then we check into, so that also helps us figure out, are you one that likes to write in the same space, or do you need a different place? Are you one that likes to write to instrumental music or total silence, or are you fed by the energy of other people at a coffee shop while you write? So we help you figure out your ideal writing space and routine. And then we say, you're also married and you have kids. Okay. And they have schedules. So let's check out are you going to be a daily writer, a weekend writer, or a binge writer where you write one weekend a month? And then what's your goal going to be based on that? And then getting extra creative around, like you did when you broke your elbow. You were so, again, an opportunity to grow for other clients. You didn't have this area of growth in yourself, which was you're so entrepreneurial, which means you're also very resourceful and self-driven. So when you broke your elbow, you began talking to text. So you spoke your book into being a few chapters. So that's another way to make it work. I have some clients who use the Otter app on their phone. And that means when they're driving, they're writing their book, just talking to it while they're driving. So we get resourceful around that. And some of my clients really struggled with the pandemic because they had kids at home, and they said, I had to stop my book. There's no way I can write. And then so we got to ask the question, what conversations need to take place in your family that would allow you space to be writing. If I just got an hour a day, I could do 300 words. And okay, so who can you call that can be with your kids? There's always an alternative outside of the box solution we can get through. So yeah, that's a big part of it, is helping establish a sustainable writing routine that honors your personality and life stage to get your book done on time.
It's going to feel a little out of place, I think, now, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because you mentioned that a lot of the people you work with are people who are religious or are coming out of maybe a Christian background, and so they have these built-in limited beliefs. But so on that, and I think Nat can also speak to this too a little bit. So as you're writing this book, sometimes about your deconstruction, sometimes about how you left the faith or left a faith that no longer works for you, you have to talk about people in your past. And you have to talk about them in sometimes a not very nice way to get your point across. So do you find that to be an area of limitation on a lot of people? Is because we're raised in a religion and a belief that says, hey, we take care of each other, we honor each other, we don't talk shit about people. If we do, we definitely do it behind closed doors, where we do our gossip, right? We do our church gossip behind doors with our close friends.
In prayer meetings, John.
Or during joys and concern.
Right. Right. We only do those during prayer time as prayer requests.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's also the other way. That very passive aggressive prayer request. But is that an area that seemed to be hard for some of these authors? Nat can probably talk on this a little bit too. To get past that. First of all, you don't want to just bash people, because that's not productive and it doesn't help. But at the same time, you're going to have to talk about some of these hard truths that you kind of came to realization of, specifically about people that were around you, right?
Yeah. 2 answers are coming up for me. And that is the boring answer, which is write what exactly happened and, of course, change the names or leave people anonymous. And then there's another level we could go deeper with, which is writing first about it from a place before you healed your shit around that, and then doing some deep work to heal your shit around that, and then rewriting that section, and then choosing what would best serve the reader right now and what is most honoring to the book. I say that because my second book was a satirical self-help book, and of being on a church staff from the age of 17 to 32 and talking about how I needed to recover as a people pleaser because I gave so much power away to louder Christians in my life, parishioners, staff members, that I had forgotten who I was. And so there were certain things I wrote about then before I had healed that stuff within me. And I would write that book differently now. However, I don't want to write the book differently now because I feel, if I may quote Jay-Z, Jay-Z.
And you may.
I may. Thank you. Jay-Z was once interviewed, and he was asked, now that you're a dad, are you going to, what are you going to do with all of your rap songs about drugs and gang culture? What are you going to do with that now that you're a dad? And Jay-Z answered that he is going to do nothing with them because that was where he was creatively, and they served a place. And they served a purpose in that place and time. And I feel the same as I'm feeling the more I talk to fellow authors, the same is true for them, that our ideas are, what's that word I can never remember, that they need to come out, not in chronological order. They come out in a certain order, a purposeful order. Did that help, or did that answer?
Yeah. Well, I remember a couple of the authors that we've interviewed over the years. Oh God, John, it's not even been a year. Yeah, over the years and years of this podcast. But over the months, I remember one of the most striking comments that one of them said to us was Felicia Merle, and I had picked up her book and I read it and I loved it. There was still in it some elements of things that triggered me a little bit, because when she wrote it, she was probably more religious than she is now. She was not as far down a deconstructive road as she had gone. And so I remember asking her about, it was like, what do you think about this book? Do you still love this book? And she said, there's a reason that Jesus wrote in sand. And it's still one of my favorite quotes. And the meaning I took from that was, she still loved it, but there were things that she would go back and tweak because she's not there anymore. But she said essentially the same thing. It served a purpose. It was authentic to where I was in the moment. I remember asking Brian Zond once too about a book he'd written early on, one of his very first books, not on the podcast. I asked him about this first time we met, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but I do remember asking what he still thought of that book. No, maybe it was, but he did say he still loved it, but he would definitely like another crack at it, 20 years, 30 years after he'd written it. So I think John's right. There is this thing. I don't know that you don't work with exclusively people who are writing religious content. I know some of the people that you've worked with, their topics don't come near what we're talking about right now. But for those of us who are writing about those kinds of experiences, I know that you and I talked about my book in the very beginning because I was very candid about some conversations. In fact, the introduction of the book centers around a conversation that I had with the pastor that really kind of sealed the deal for me. Like I was done with some of this stuff. Well, I still live in the town where this guy lives, and we're still friends and we still like each other. He's going to read this book probably and immediately know, oh, damn, that's about me. And I was and am still concerned that he won't take it in the spirit in which I wrote it, because I tried very hard not to be. I wasn't really being overly critical. I just was relating what happened. Like, this is the conversation as best I can remember it. This is what bothered me about it. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. I don't have any issue, by the way, name dropping people who are very public figures. So in my book, I have no issue calling out Mark Driscoll for the scumbag that he is. I don't have any issue, calling out, way of the master douchebags and their pseudo evangelism. I'll drop a name if I think it's useful, but I'm not going to drop the name of the guy who lives, across town from me. Call undue attention to him for no reason.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that reminds me of your awesome witty style that the best comedy offends someone. And if you're afraid of offending someone, then you can't be a comedic writer like you are. It's a good comedy is at the expense of somebody. And
we just have to be sure to punch. Isn't that where that punch up thing comes down? We don't want to be punching down.
Yes,
that's why.
Yes.
So blasting the poor schlub across town who's doing his very best, even though we disagree. I love him. He's a good guy. There's no utility in that.
Right.
I don't mind punching up to some of these other knuckleheads who traffic in their own name enough that I don't mind trafficking in somewhat.
Right. And you can, this goes back to John's question. So much of great writing is listening to your body and getting in tune with your body. And you can check in and see, what is my motive for this? Am I writing to get revenge? And I've been there, and that's not going to be aligned with in line with integrity. And my frequency as the creator is going to come through in my creation. So if I'm writing solely from a place of being vengeful, the readers are going to feel that. And so there are times that we check in with our body and we breathe, we come home, and we think, you know what? I'm writing because I'm still so fucking mad at that person at the church. Like, I have so much anger. This isn't going to serve my reader right now. Speaking from my experience about a certain part that I left out of my second book. And so I'm not going to write this. That you can check in and figure out what's my motive here. And, this is kind of related. I had a client who was gay and hadn't told a member of his family, and he was a pastor, and he was afraid to write. His block was coming up because he was afraid to publish this book about being a gay pastor because of one person in his family. And this happens a lot. Like, most of the time, our writers, sometimes, most of the time, writers block when we say, like, I'm afraid what they'll think of me. It's usually not a they'll. For writers, it's a one or two people. And their voices are in our head telling us that we're not smart enough or that we're going to be rejected. So anyway, he hit this big block, and he came out 3 months into working on his book that he hadn't told this one person he was gay. And so what we did was we wrote a chapter of based on or pretending that he had told this person, and this person was 100% supportive and loving and accepted them and was so happy for him to live a full, happy life as a gay man. And then we wrote another version of the chapter that was this person not knowing. And then I asked him which one felt more at home to him as a writer. And he, of course, said the one where he was loved and accepted. And so then we get to talk about, we're going to go with that chapter, and let's talk about how you, as a co-creator with the divine, can self-source that love that person's not giving you right now. And so that was another way to tap in about how to write about sticky situations. Wrapping up that question 45 minutes later.
No, it's great. No,
it actually ties in nicely a little bit to the questions from the Facebook group, from your Facebook group. I have questions from Carol Wimmer and Jonathan Wilson.
Woohoo! Two of our most favorite contributors.
Yeah. And so this whole idea of, sorry, I'm not the host. Can I go here?
Please do. No, please. John and I clearly... Yeah, we've given up any pretense of knowing what we're doing.
Okay, so Jonathan's question is connected to this idea of there's someone who's at a different stage of consciousness than I am that's not going to like my book, and I'm afraid on a subconscious level, I'm afraid that if they don't like my book, I'm rejected, I'm not accepted, I'm alone. That was a fear of mine too. So I can totally relate to the client. So Jonathan's question is, to no surprise, it's a beautiful, long-winded question. And the question is, the comment I always resonate with is when John is like, I am 51 years old and has never heard of any of this before. I echo this in like every episode. I've never heard this before. So how do we increase the reach of our authors and podcasts? The message and the ideas in these books help so much, but they don't have the marketing machine bookstores as more mainstream authors. How can they get a place of actually earning a living doing it? I do think we have begun to see the interactivity of the community starting to solve some of these problems. A couple of good examples, a good chunk of us actually buy all the books we can, and interviews on Mutual Podcast. If I remember right, the editor of podcast was from Facebook, Meg Calvin being a coach, Keith Giles doing some editing, et cetera, et cetera. So the question I want to tap in, and it might not be a likable answer, but the question is, how can we get more people to know about this? I've never known about this, and I know what he means by this is the content of your show. So the question I have is, the answer I have, and I'm excited to hear what you guys would answer to this too. The answer I have is, it's not meant for everyone. Oh gosh, did I just say that? What I mean, nervous laughter. I just said something controversial. What I mean by that is that everyone's invited, obviously, and not everyone's ready for it. And I think about the four levels of consciousness. Have you ever heard of this? It's amazing. So it's this moving from, and we move through all of these four levels of consciousness throughout the day. The first is life happens to me, like victim consciousness. Life happens by me, responsibility consciousness. Life happens through me, surrender consciousness. And life happens as me, oneness consciousness. So I say that what I have found is that different strands of Christianity land in either of these. Yeah. So to maybe not answer Jonathan's question in the way he wants, I feel more conservative, right-wing evangelical Christian churches that's the religious story that they're telling themselves about God, Jesus, salvation, the rapture, any theological point. It is in some way serving them until they choose that it no longer serves them. And these levels of consciousness that we all move throughout the day. And some studies I've read say that like 90% of us simply stay in the to me, life happens to me or life happens by me consciousness. And if you notice, I've noticed that in more conservative Christian leaning denominations, what they're teaching really celebrates the victim mindset and fosters that victim consciousness. And that is, I know this is going to be controversial, but that is okay. It's not my job to save them until they're ready to be saved or have their mind changed as they move through these levels of consciousness.
Now you're right. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Mm-hmm. I do understand. I think I get the frustration that folks like Jonathan feel because there is such a, I'm going to use a big word here. John, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
There is such a hegemony around Christian writing and Christian. There are people within that structure who see themselves as the gatekeepers. I write about this a little bit in my book because if you run afoul of that machine, they can take away your livelihood, and they do. So Jen Hatmaker felt this deeply when she no longer carried the water of right-wing evangelicals, and Beth Moore feels it maybe less so. But as she's decided to speak out and be her authentic self, obviously our dear friend Rachel Held Evans felt it very deeply because I'm not sure she was ever inside of those circles. But if you go to, I think one thing that's interesting that's happened over the last probably 10 years is watching some of these sort of chains of bookstores and places go bankrupt. Is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think the world needs another Lifeway Bible Christian bookstore, whatever it was called, where they get to decide what books go on the shelves and what books don't go on the shelves. So there is that sense that I can send. I was just talking to my friend Todd Mullen. Hey, Todd, you made it under another podcast. Todd
Yay,
Mullen,
Todd.
who happens to be my co-pastor. And anyway, he had gone up to. His daughter goes to Texas Tech, and so he'd gone up to Lubbock to see his daughter. And they always go into Barnes and Noble. That's what their deal is. They love to go to bookstores. And he's like, the last several times I've gone, there's nothing there for me. Like you peruse the religious section at a major bookstore, and you will find the usual suspects. but you won't find some of these other sort of marginal voices. The people that John and I and people that we talk about on the podcast would all know and love, right? We could go, man, Brad Jersag and Brian Zond, and, go on down the list of people that we all know. But outside of certain circles, you just get blank stares like, I don't know who that is. One thing that I think that you bring to the table is this, I guess, for lack of a better word, permission to market yourself, because that is sort of a no taboo, right? With this, even though obviously big name Christian people market the crap out of themselves and no one seems to blink. But for some of us, that feels like, marketing seems like a little bit of a, I don't know, just something that's not inside of our expertise or not something we're super comfortable with. So, talk about walking people through marketing their book and marketing themselves for that matter. Yeah.
I first like to start by quoting a Bible passage.
Nice. Always a solid choice.
Thank you. I rarely do it. So I'm always glad when I'm surprised when I do. Yeah. So First John 1:10 says this beautiful prayer. I'm sure all your listeners have it memorized because they're good little Christians.
Sure. That's in the New Testament, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And in this prayer, Jesus is celebrating and praying for oneness with the Father, that we may be one with God, like they are both one. And how I interpret, that's a buzzword, how I have taken that verse, how that verse has spoken to me, is that we are all connected as the body of Christ, if we choose to use those words. And by that, since we are connected, we can trust that when we are moving with integrity, if an idea is bubbling up within us, it's there for two reasons. And equally, both are, hear me out. This is really important. Both reasons are equally important. The first reason is to give us joy. That idea, as a divine co-creator made in the image of God, we receive joy, pleasure from creating. And the second reason that idea is there and it's just as important, is to serve another person who's desperately hungry for it, who's been waiting to be served by us. If we can be Esther for a moment, for such a time as this, people have been waiting for us to birth that idea based on our experience, our gifts of this moment in time, what is happening in our lives that allow us to do it. So we also see that truth in quantum physics, that thoughts become matter, that energy follows thought. And so we're also, if an idea is within us, it's there to serve someone else. Now, to sound like a broken record, I always say, unless you want to go start a GoFundMe campaign for full body laser hair removal, that idea that's inside of you is there to serve someone else. So once we get clear on that with Christian authors or spiritual author, no, it really is just Christian authors. I have some clients that aren't Christian and they don't struggle with this as much as Christians do.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, with marketing, yes. So once we're clear on that, we get to tap into how can we make marketing less about being slimy and manipulative and salesy, and more about authentically connecting with people that are most likely, if you're writing nonfiction or memoir, who are most likely who you were and are feeling how you felt 7 to 10 years ago. And you're in the trenches with them as a trusted guide, and they are just so hungry for guidance. And then how can we make marketing that feels like that relationship building as a trusted guide in the trenches with you? So we do that. I teach organic social media marketing, so without ads, and we do a pre-launch model like you said you were going to do with a street team, and then I get to go to the back end of Amazon and play the algorithm game of getting your book to bestseller, and all of that is done through the spirit of serving people first and foremost. And yeah, we monetize, and yeah, you make money. And yes, I know that I can market the hell out of anything, and I know the game really, really well. But first and foremost, my frequency is always service to others. And thankfully, all the clients that have come my way have been the same.
That was maybe one of the most useful things. I think it came in probably our first real meeting. Probably one of the more useful things that you said to me was just what you just said was okay. Let's let's reframe this out of, hey, I need to write a book, because there does seem to be an element of like, oh, well, la-di-da, look at him, he wrote a book, like as though it is, ego driven on my part. I just have something I think everyone needs to hear. And then you turned that around to say, actually, what do you hope to accomplish with this? Like, who do you think your book will serve? Would you have loved to have had this book in your hands 7 years ago or 10 years ago? And my answer was, well, yeah, no, it would have helped tremendously, because it's very, very helpful to at the very least know that you're not the first person to think of this, that you're not crazy. And then to maybe have somebody come along and add language to things that you already think. That's super helpful. That's the best thing I get out of books that I read now is I go, hey, yeah, you're putting into words something I have felt for a long time. Thank you for giving me the language to articulate what I've been feeling.
And haven't we noticed in the last year or almost year, one of the most common things that people say within our Facebook group is, I really thought I was the only one doing this.
Yeah.
I really
absolutely.
thought I was the only person who felt like this.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody else was going through what I'm going through.
Well, and there's a real danger, and Meg, you helped with this as well. There's a real danger if you're someone like John or me or you who are deeply in these circles to feel like everyone's on board with you. And like I realize that there are lots and lots and lots of people who are still at square one, who don't even realize there is a square two. And so I have to stop limiting the audience by saying, well, who needs to hear this? It's all been said. Yeah, but they haven't read it. It's just because Brad Jersak wrote a book about it and he did a fantastic job. Well, they may not buy Brad's book. They might buy my book, and where I can name drop Brad and sort of like trampoline off of his work. I can just ride on the shoulders of the great ones ahead of me. But that was a really useful, it was helpful to reframe that in a way that I guess empowers you to go ahead and do your thing and say, okay, listen, the book's been written, but my book hasn't been written. And so God help me. I hope I have a unique take on this. If I don't, no one will buy it and we'll know, we just won't do this again. But, I suspect that, it'll be all right.
Yeah. It's such a lie that there's nothing new under the sun, because when you take your uniquely curated ideas through your very unique style and your lens and market it with your unique message through to a different audience than an author that might have written about a similar topic, you have a new experience with your book, even if it is exploring a similar topic as someone else. So it'll be, yeah. Do you talk about reframing? It reminds me of another client who said that she was a pastor and a consultant and had been a pastor for 30 years. And it was a huge reframe for her to realize after we equipped her to be a master at organic social media marketing, she realized, oh my gosh, the most ethical and selfless thing I can do is market my book. And that was huge for her. And I think about our friend Ellen Compton, who is a client of mine, who we helped to get her book to number one on Canada Amazon on all hot new releases on drop day without a single ad, which is amazing. And she talked about how marketing no longer felt slimy to her. And the big reframe, the funny thing about that really, and I was here in 2017 when my first book got picked up. I struggled with marketing so much. And then I realized once I learned how to market that the best kind of marketing doesn't say a single thing about me as the writer. It says a whole lot about the results I'm going to get my reader and how much I care for my reader. That's what the best marketing does. And that, when it's done right, feels very ministerial.
And very genuine and very authentic, right? I mean, so that's, yeah. And honestly, at this point, we've probably talked to a bunch of your clients, haven't we? I mean, I know Ellen's fantastic, by the way. If you haven't read Ellen's books,
Shonda, and Josh Lawson.
Oh yeah, and Josh Lawson. So yeah, we've had a few of your clients on, and they all speak very highly of you. So you're welcome.
Speaking of books, we have another question. Do you want me to read the next question from your?
Yeah. Is this the one from Carol?
Yes. Yes, it's wonderfully. The Holy Spirit is connecting our call today.
Love it.
She says, Carol Wimmer, my question is how to publish an academic type book, biblical research, that contains over 80 full color illustrations. I'm guessing it needs to be an ebook, only because print would be unaffordable. So, Carol, I did some research on your question, and great news. It doesn't have to be an ebook. You should publish it with Quire. And you will make, since you're the illustrator yourself, which I reached out to you to confirm that, and you will make more money, more royalties being the illustrator and the author of the book. That's a myth.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold up. So I just decided I'm going to illustrate my own book. based on nothing in particular. Just sort of came to me. I think it's going to be an entire book full of stick figures because that's all I can draw.
Yes, I was going to say, you can't draw now. No, I can. Stick figures. It's all going to be in there. I'm sure you can do that well.
No, I don't think so. But that's amazing. I remember reading that question in the Facebook group, and it immediately I thought of Matt DiStefano's book that he and Zach did together, which was loaded with illustrations that had to be done as a hardcover, basically. And it was, ended up being.
It's a beautiful book.
It's a beautiful book. It's really, really awesome. It also had to be sold at like $30, or because it's just a lot of material and time went into it, and so that'll be a limiting factor, I think, at least in the short term. But yeah, I actually have a copy of Carol's book sitting on my stand right there, that she gave me when we met. I met her in Kansas City. Well, near Kansas City. We were attending a conference together. And it was Brian Zahn, Brad Jersak, and Michael Harden in a conference they called the Crucified God Conference. And so we were all there because we'd connected on Facebook with those guys. And anyway, I met Carol, and the first thing she did was put a copy of her book in my hand. And she is so generous. She just wants to get this book in the hands of people. And I think that means she's given a lot of them away, the ones that she self-published. But yeah, I would love to see her connected up with somebody who could really put some muscle behind her work. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like it's a book that is going to serve a lot of people. That's awesome.
Yeah. We interviewed her on the podcast a little while back. I will say this. I still don't get it. I mean, her brain's functioning on another level. That is, so it's amazing what she's saying. It will take some time to fully digest everything she's putting out there. It's interesting stuff.
I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to take a second go, if I could, at the question around Jonathan's question. Not a second go. I just feel like, as always, I get so nervous on podcasts as a guest. I figured it out recently. I was telling my own coach that I'd rather speak to 1,000 people live than be a guest on a podcast. And as I meditated on it and journaled about it, I realized that my whole life, I've always had test anxiety. That with a multiple choice test, I could figure out and argue why A is right, why B is right, why C and D is right. And I would get so nervous and stressed. Well, I was approaching podcast guesting like a test, and I would get so nervous, and then I would ramble. And so I decided last week, that I shared with my coach, I am going to start treating podcast interviews like a game of Balderdash, which is my favorite game ever, where you're totally spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
Spontaneously, just pulling things out of my ass, just saying things. And so that's what I'm trying today. And it's really calmed my nerves. But in the midst of my nervous rambling, that's still here a little bit, that I get to work through, is Jonathan's question was, and you talking about how there seems to be a lot more books being sold by those conservative, right-wing, evangelical Christian leaning authors. And I feel like that's always going to be the case, no matter how well we market our stuff, because, and I don't want to sound pretentious, and I hope that doesn't come through, it just is what it is, that there are less people who are living in the level of consciousness that is oneness consciousness or through me consciousness, surrendering consciousness, there are less people interested and ready for what we are selling. And that is okay. That is not to say that those that do believe differently, it's not to say they might never change their beliefs, but I feel that what we are dishing out is not for the masses, and that is okay. And that's also very, very encouraging and catalyzing, and it lifts the weight for authors when you get clear as an author of who my book's for, and then, which I help authors with, and then clearly say to people when they invite you to come speak or someone wants to buy your book, you can stand in confidence and pure love for yourself and say, you know what, my book's not for your audience. It's not for you. You can buy it, but I guarantee it's not for you. And that's okay. But it's not for everybody. So.
Right. You can buy it, but you are not going to like it.
Yes.
Well, just, not to put too fine a point on it, but there's a reason that the mainstream is the mainstream. So
exactly. Yeah, you said that so concisely, as always.
Like inherent in what we do is most of us are going against the grain. Well, that's necessarily going to take fewer people with you on that ride. And the people who are merely interested in marketing to their mainstream audience there's no impetus there at all to do something other than what is formulaic. We're going to talk. In fact, the next interview we have is with Carolyn Whitney Brown, and she had been approached to finish a piece of writing that Henry Nouwen did before he died. He died and it was not finished.
John was telling me about that before.
It's amazing. And one of the things that I loved about reading about Henry, and I kept wanting to call him Henri, but I guess he goes by Henry, even though he's Dutch.
We're so cultured.
But one of the things that struck me about him was as he's struggling with how to write this book, he says, I could have easily fit this into the patterns of a couple of books I'd already written, and it would have. And actually, he went so far as to outline it and do all this stuff, and he just scrapped it. He said, "I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be the guy that just keeps repurposing his work." So he went to the great lengths of going to writing classes, and this is an accomplished author who one of the most famous at the time of his death. He was one of the most well-read, famous writers of his genre. And he was reading books about writing and going to classes about writing to try and come up with some new way to present this material that had so captured his imagination. And so that's, I think, as we approach this, authors like us, the people that you represent, the people that Choir likes to publish, there just needs to be that sense that like exactly what you said, that what you're writing won't be for everyone. We're not writing John Grisham novels that, millions and millions of people are going to go, yeah, John Grisham.
Romantic fiction.
Right. So this is we're already in a niche. We're already in a little bit of a niche market anyway. So, but yeah, I think and that's liberating somewhat to realize that, okay, this is going to be for a specific audience, and hopefully that will leak out a little bit, and other people will pick it up. Because the first time I picked up a Brian Zahn book, I was like, "Who the hell is this guy, and where's he been all my life?"
Well, and I think you can also, it's not not for them right now, right? So that's the other part of this.
Yeah.
So, the perfect example for me, and Nat and I have talked about this before, is I read Brennan Manning 20 years ago, right? And it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing for me. I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting book. That was cute. It was nice." And then I read it again about 6 years ago, and it was absolutely destroyed me in the best ways possible. 20 years ago, or whenever I read it the first time, I just wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. But then, life happens, right? Shit happens in your life. Just, things change. If your perspective of you in this world, and then all of a sudden the same book that was not meaningless, but just didn't really speak to you, now does speak to you. So you got to remember that too, that, your book might not be for everybody now, but it's going to be for somebody. And then it might be for somebody else later again, right? That's
so empowering to give people the gift of their experience from a place of love.
Very, very true.
Yeah. That religious belief. So go experience that. I love you right where you are. And I'm gonna write my offensive satire that you won't like, and I love you.
Well, we can all be, Matt DiStefano and write books called, like Devoted as Fuck or whatever he wrote. Only Matt could write a devotional book and throw an expletive in it. He just wrote a new one, didn't he?
He's writing one right now.
I saw the cover. It says, isn't it like "Don't be a dick" and like other helpful advice?
That's
all right. So
Matt's
carved himself out a nice little little niche mark. I love it, but I mean, and what he writes is helpful and useful.
I sent him a meme. I said, I already wrote this book. I'm sorry, I already wrote this book, and it was a meme. It's basically 3 pictures, right? And then it says the first one is how to not be a dick. Then the second one is don't be a dick, and the third one is follow me for more advice.
Always helpful. See, that's it. So I'm hoping that when you buy his book, it'll be 3 pages long. It'll be like, that was useful. I want my $10 back, Matt. We are going to have to cut this off here in a moment, but man. I could talk to you for hours. We've talked for hours, and I haven't gotten to the end of enjoying our time together. So if you haven't read Meg's books, being my own sanctuary, right? Did I say that? Is that
so close?
Or I am my own sanctuary.
There it is.
Okay. I am my own sanctuary.
And every great book has a long ass subtitle. The subtitle is How a Recovering Holy Roller Found Healing and Power. And it's for recovering people pleasers. Yep. Recovering people pleasers.
That's amazing. And obviously follow her on Facebook and Twitter and all the other social medias. I'm sure she's got a lively TikTok channel.
I'm on TikTok. I'm not on Twitter, but I have a free gift for your listeners. May I share this?
What? Ooh. Way to tease it at the end.
Yes. I might be a nervous guest, but I'm a prepared guest. So, I love it. Yeah. So I have a free training that is 3 ways to make marketing your book more fun and less frustrating. So if you go to megcalvin.com, you'll get it right there on the homepage. And in the spirit of serving others and being in line with integrity, that will put you on my email list. But email marketing is not my forte. Organic social media marketing is my forte. So that means you're probably going to get an email from me once a quarter. So alerting you on exciting things.
See, and that's a second gift.
Yes, that's right. So get that training, 3 ways to make marketing your book more fun and less frustrating at megcalvin.com. Yeah. Excited to serve you guys with it.
I thought for sure when you let off with that title, it was going to be 3 ways to make marketing your bitch. Which you may want to rethink and go that way. But we will. I'm sorry, I just couldn't help it. Just where my brain went. I need help. I'm hoping to get saved sometime this year. I'm gonna go to a revival and see if I can, meet up with somebody. But we'll link to that in the show notes.
If you go to a Methodist church, you can't be saved again because you've already been saved once.
They won't let you get saved twice?
Oh, man.
Childhood is a lie, John. I got saved at least every other Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been saved. I think actually at this point, it's just been like, how many times have you been saved? Oh, man.
That punch card, I got saved 9 times, and then the 10th one was free. The 10th one was free.
Did you get a free Subway sandwich or something at the end?
No, just free. I got free wafers and a little thing of grape juice.
So maybe you didn't have to repent for the last one. Like, yeah, that's a freebie. You can have that one. Well, okay. As we slide into oblivious weirdness and... we will link to your website on the show notes and make sure everyone knows to come get their free gift. You don't want to pass up an opportunity to get anything from Meg Calvin. She's fantastic. You'll love her. If you have the slightest inkling of a thought that you might want to write something or market something you've already written, or just might want to just shoot the breeze with somebody cool, you should really reach out. I would just say, send the email, make the contact. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about what kinds of things Meg can help you do, what kinds of things you can accomplish. So I'll leave it by saying thank you for being an awesome guest, and thank you for being an awesome coach and a good friend. I appreciate you.
Oh, ditto.
I agree with everything Nat said.
Yay! Yeah, way to go, John. Way to go on a limb there.
Yes.
I agree with.
I also like how I was about to bow to you, like the guys on Wayne's World.
Wayne's World. We're not worthy. All right, we're gonna leave it at that before I say something else ridiculous. John, it's been a hoot.
It has. Let me hit this button.
Hit that button, yo!
Thank you for listening to This Is Not Church. Be sure to rate and review the podcast on your platform of choice. If you would like to partner with us, visit patreon.com/thisisnotchurch, where you will receive exclusive content such as early access to episodes, videos of upcoming episodes, and live Q&A sessions. Be sure to check out our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the show notes. We'll be back soon with another episode.